There's a reason your eyes stopped here. Out of everything you could be doing, out of every voice competing for your attention, something pulled you into this moment. And I don't say that lightly. I say it with conviction, because the God who orders steps also orders moments. You're not here by accident. You may feel ordinary. You may feel overlooked, delayed, or even forgotten. But heaven does not operate on human assumptions. What looks random to you is often intentional in the spirit. What feels like delay is often divine positioning. And what feels like confusion is sometimes the beginning of clarity breaking through. There's a calling on your life that doesn't always make sense to others. It's not always loud, not always visible, and not always celebrated. In fact, most of the time it's hidden. It grows in silence. It develops in seasons where no one is clapping for you, no one is noticing you, and no one is affirming you. But that does not mean it isn't real. There are people who chase platforms, but you've been shaped in private places. You've walked through moments that didn't look like preparation, but they were. Pain taught you things comfort never could. Isolation revealed things noise would have drowned out. And in those quiet, heavy moments, something deeper was being formed inside you. You didn't choose every struggle you faced. You didn't ask for certain battles, certain losses, or certain disappointments. But even there, God was not absent. He was working in ways you couldn't see, building strength you didn't know you would need, placing within you a sensitivity, a discernment, a depth that can't be taught. It has to be lived. There's a reason you feel things deeply. There's a reason you can't fully settle into a life that feels empty or surface level. There's a reason something inside you keeps whispering. There's more. That whisper is not your imagination. It's a signal. It's a call. But here's the part many don't understand. Calling often comes with weight. It comes with responsibility. It comes with seasons of stretching where you feel like you're being pulled in directions you didn't plan. It comes with moments where you question yourself, where you wonder if you're capable, where you feel like stepping back would be easier than stepping forward. And yet, despite all of that, you're still here. You didn't give up. You didn't fully walk away. Something kept you holding on, even if it was just a thread. That thread matters. That persistence matters. Because calling is not just about ability, it's about endurance. It's about staying when it would be easier to leave. It's about believing when there isn't visible proof yet. You may not have all the answers right now. You may not see the full picture, but you don't need full clarity to take the next step. You just need enough faith to move forward, even if it's slow, even if it's uncertain. There are things inside you that haven't been activated yet, gifts that are still developing, strength that is still unfolding. And sometimes the reason it hasn't fully surfaced is because the timing isn't complete. God is not just preparing the calling. He's preparing you to carry it. Because if it came too early, it would crush you. If the doors opened too fast, you wouldn't be ready to walk through them. So instead, there's a process, a refining, a shaping, and yes, sometimes a breaking, not to destroy you, but to remove what can't go where you're headed. Not everyone will understand this journey. Some people will misinterpret your silence. Some will misunderstand your distance. Others may even doubt you. But this path was never meant to be validated by everyone. It was meant to be walked by you. You're not here to fit into every space. You're not here to please every voice. You are here to respond to the one who placed something inside you before you even knew how to name it. And if you're honest, you felt it. In moments where everything was quiet, you felt it. In moments where you almost gave up, you felt it. In moments where you questioned everything, you still felt that pull. That's not coincidence. That's calling. So don't dismiss this moment. Don't brush it off like it's just another message, another video, another voice. Treat it like what it might actually be, a reminder, a wake-up, a confirmation. You're not here by accident. There is purpose attached to your presence. There is meaning behind your survival. There is direction behind the things you've been through. Even the parts you don't fully understand yet, they're not wasted. And right now, you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to see the entire road. You just need to acknowledge this truth. You were seen before you were searching. You were called before you were ready. And you were chosen, even in the moments you felt unqualified. So stand in that. even if your voice shakes, even if your steps feel small, even if your path looks different from everyone else around you. Because different doesn't mean wrong. Hidden doesn't mean forgotten. And slow doesn't mean you're not moving. You are moving. And this moment, this exact moment, is part of that movement. There are moments in life that don't announce themselves with noise or spectacle, yet they carry a weight that your spirit can feel even if your mind cannot fully explain it. This is one of those moments. You didn't arrive here randomly. You weren't just scrolling, passing time, or wandering without direction. Something unseen, something intentional, guided your attention to this exact point, and deep down, there's a quiet awareness inside you that recognizes it. God does not rely on chance the way humans understand it. What feels accidental to you is often orchestrated with precision beyond your comprehension. He knows how to reach you in ways that bypass logic, in ways that speak directly to the inner places you don't always show to the world. That restlessness you've been carrying, that sense that something is shifting, that feeling you can't quite put into words, it is not meaningless, is often how God begins to get your attention. You may have tried to ignore it. You may have told yourself it's just emotion, just overthinking, just a passing phase. But it keeps returning, doesn't it? It shows up in quiet moments, in late nights, in spaces where distraction fades and truth begins to surface. It's in those moments that something deeper starts to stir, something that refuses to be silenced. God has a way of interrupting the ordinary without asking for permission. He steps into routines, into patterns, into places where everything feels predictable, and suddenly, something changes. Not always dramatically on the outside, but unmistakably on the inside. A thought hits differently. A message lands deeper. A realization begins to unfold that you can't easily shake off. This is how he calls attention without force. He doesn't always shout. Sometimes he whispers in a way that echoes louder than noise. And the fact that you're still here, still reading, still engaged says something. It suggests that this moment has already begun to resonate within you, even if you haven't fully processed why. There is something about divine interruption that disrupts comfort. It challenges the way you've been thinking, the way you've been living, the way you've been seeing yourself. It introduces a possibility that maybe your life is not as random as it once felt, that maybe there's intention woven into your steps, even the ones that seem misplaced or uncertain. And when that realization starts to take hold, it can feel unsettling. Because if this moment is intentional, then it carries responsibility. It means you can't simply go back to not knowing. It means something is being revealed, even if only in fragments. And fragments are enough for God to begin something new. You don't have to understand everything right now. You don't have to map out what comes next. But you do need to recognize this. Moments like this are not empty. They are invitations. Invitations to become aware, to listen more closely, to stop dismissing what your spirit is trying to show you. Because the truth is, God knows how to find you, even when you're not looking for him. There are seasons in your life that feel quiet, unnoticed, even forgotten, where it seems like nothing significant is happening and no real progress is being made. You look around and see others moving forward, gaining recognition, stepping into opportunities, while you remain in a place that feels still, almost invisible. It can make you question whether anything meaningful is unfolding at all, or if you've somehow been left behind in the process. But what feels like stillness is often preparation taking place beneath the surface. God does some of his most profound work in hidden places, away from applause, away from validation, away from the noise that would distract from what he is forming inside you. These are the seasons where your foundation is being strengthened, where your character is being shaped, where your dependence shifts from external affirmation to internal conviction. You may not see immediate results, and that can be frustrating. You may feel like your efforts go unnoticed, like your growth is too slow, like your prayers are unanswered. But hidden does not mean inactive. Silence does not mean absence. In fact, God often removes visible progress so that you learn to trust him without needing constant proof. There are things he is building in you that cannot be rushed. Patience that only develops when you are forced to wait. strength that only emerges when you endure pressure, wisdom that only comes through experience, not instruction. These are not surface-level changes. They go deep into who you are, reshaping the way you think, the way you respond, the way you carry yourself when no one is watching. It is in these unseen moments that your motives are refined. When there is no audience, no reward, no recognition, you are confronted with the question of why you continue. And that question matters because calling is sustained by purpose, not by applause. If everything you did was immediately rewarded, you would never develop the endurance required to carry something greater. Sometimes God allows you to feel the weight of isolation so that you begin to hear Him more clearly. When other voices fade, when distractions are removed, when the usual sources of comfort are no longer available, you are left with a deeper awareness of His presence. It may not always feel comforting at first. Sometimes it feels like stripping, like losing what you once relied on. But in that stripping, space is created for something stronger to take root. You might wonder why your journey looks different, why your progress seems slower, why your path feels less defined. But different does not mean delayed. It often means intentional. There are layers to your calling that require a different kind of preparation, one that cannot happen in the spotlight, one that requires time, pressure, and privacy. What you are becoming is not always visible to others, but it is real. Every moment of persistence, every decision to keep going when it would be easier to stop, every quiet act of faith when no one is there to see it, all of it is building something within you that will one day be revealed at the right time, in the right way, according to a plan that has never lost sight of you. There's a side of calling that many people admire from a distance, but few are willing to truly carry. It's easy to celebrate purpose when it looks powerful, when it looks influential, when it seems filled with clarity and direction. But what most people don't see is the weight that comes with it, the internal stretching, the pressure to grow beyond who you used to be, and the constant pull to rise higher, even when you feel unready. Calling is not just about what you do. It's about who you are becoming in the process. And that transformation is rarely comfortable. It requires you to confront parts of yourself you would rather avoid. It requires you to let go of habits, mindsets, and even relationships that can no longer go where you're being led. And that kind of separation can feel heavy because not everyone will understand why you're changing or why you can no longer remain the same. There are moments when the weight feels overwhelming, when you question whether you misheard, whether you are capable, whether you're strong enough to continue. Doubt doesn't always come from weakness. Sometimes it comes from awareness. You begin to realize that what you're being called to is bigger than your current capacity, and that realization can make you feel small, uncertain, even afraid to take the next step. And yet, that tension is part of the process. Calling will stretch your capacity until what once felt impossible begins to feel necessary. It will push you into spaces where you have to rely on faith rather than certainty, where you have to move without having all the answers, where obedience becomes more important than comfort. This is why not everyone understands it, because from the outside, it can look like you're making decisions that don't make sense. People may question your direction. They may not see what you see or feel what you feel. Some may even project their own fears onto your journey, trying to pull you back into what is familiar, what is safe, what is easier to explain. But calling does not always align with what is convenient. It often requires you to step into the unknown, to trust beyond logic, to move forward even when the path is not fully visible. There's also a loneliness that can come with it. Not because you are meant to be isolated, but because not everyone is walking the same path. There are thoughts you carry that you can't easily express, convictions that run deeper than casual conversation, a sense of direction that doesn't always translate into words. And in those moments, it can feel like you're standing apart, like you're moving in a way that others cannot fully relate to. But that separation is not without purpose. It creates a space where your dependence shifts away from people and back toward God. It teaches you to stand firm even when affirmation is absent, to remain grounded even when understanding is limited. It builds a resilience that allows you to carry what you've been given without collapsing under the pressure, shaping you into someone who can handle not just the vision, but the responsibility that comes with it. There comes a moment when something within you refuses to stay asleep any longer, when the quiet nudges you once ignored begin to rise with a stronger urgency, when the sense that there is more to your life becomes impossible to dismiss. It doesn't always happen suddenly. Sometimes it builds slowly, layer by layer, thought by thought, until you realize you can no longer return to the version of yourself that was unaware. This is the beginning of awakening. Not just an emotional reaction, not just a temporary inspiration, but a deeper shift in how you see yourself, your purpose, and the direction your life is meant to take. You start to recognize patterns you once overlooked. You begin to understand that certain doors closing were not punishments, but redirections. You see that some of the things you lost were never meant to stay, and that what felt like setbacks were often steps guiding you into alignment. With that awareness comes responsibility. Awakening is not comfortable, because once you see differently, you can't unsee. You become more conscious of your choices, more aware of your environment, more sensitive to what aligns with your purpose and what doesn't. Things that once felt normal may begin to feel out of place. Conversations may feel shallow. Environments may feel limiting. And there's an internal pull urging you to move differently, to think differently, to live with greater intention. At the same time, stepping into what you were chosen for does not mean everything suddenly becomes clear. In fact, clarity often unfolds in motion, not in stillness. You're not given the entire path at once. You are given enough light for the next step. And that can feel challenging because it requires trust. It requires you to move forward without having every detail secured, to act on what you sense even when you cannot fully explain it to others. There's also a resistance that rises when you begin to step forward. Fear tries to remind you of your past limitations. Doubt tries to question your readiness. Comfort tries to pull you back into what is familiar. And these voices can feel convincing, especially when you're standing at the edge of something new. But awakening gives you a different perspective. It allows you to see that those voices are not instructions. They're obstacles that must be recognized, but not obeyed. As you continue, something begins to shift inside you. What once felt intimidating starts to feel necessary. What once felt impossible starts to feel within reach. Not because everything has changed around you, but because something has changed within you. Your mindset strengthens. Your focus sharpens. Your willingness to move despite uncertainty increases. You begin to understand that stepping into your calling is not about perfection. It's about alignment. It's about showing up even when you're still growing. It's about taking action even when you are still learning. It's about trusting that the same God who awakens something inside you will also sustain you as you walk it out, guiding you step by step into a life that reflects the purpose placed within you.